I have a cell phone provider for domestic phone calls, SMS text messaging, and data. However, when I travel internationally, that provider's international plan is not cost effective. I'm talking $10 a day for data only, and then additional costs for phone calls and text messages. So if I'm trying to save money while traveling, using my carrier's international plan is probably not the way to go. I have previously reviewed the pros and cons of using a mobile hotspot when traveling abroad. I'll leave that video linked below if you haven't checked that out. But my last couple of international trips, I have used an eSIM, and I wanted to kind of talk about my experience of using an eSIM for data while abroad. So an eSIM, or embedded SIM, is essentially just a digital SIM card that you download and activate within your phone. So instead of the traditional physical SIM cards where you would take out or remove your SIM card that was your primary line, and then to the country that you're at, get that SIM card to connect to the local mobile carriers. eSIMs allow you to do that all digitally without having to worry about storing, keeping multiple physical SIM cards. So like I said, my last couple of international trips, I have been using an eSIM. So a couple years ago when I went to Germany to visit my cousin for a week, I used an eSIM from the French company Orange, and that company had different packages and plans, but I chose them specifically because not only did they have a data plan, but they also had phone calls and text messages where you would get a local French number so that you can make local calls and send text messages locally if need be. And so that was appealing to me. For my trip to Germany, I was planning on doing a solo day trip to Strasbourg, France, and I wanted the ability to have a local phone number so that I could call restaurants if I wanted to make a reservation, or if an emergency happened, I had a local phone number. Now, if you've seen my Germany vlog or the video I made after that on travel lessons that I've learned from that trip, there was a transportation strike in France, so I did not actually make the trip to Strasbourg, but I had a local phone number anyway for that trip. Now, Orange's packages have been updated since the one that I purchased, but I specifically purchased their Holiday Zen package that had 8 gigabytes of 4G data that included 30 minutes of phone calls and 200 text messages worldwide, and unlimited calls and text messages in Europe. This was for 14 days and it was 20 euros. I tend to find that for a week-long trip, I use 2 gigabytes of data, so this was more than enough data. And although I was only going to be in Germany for a week, the different options that this package included was worth it for me, even though I wasn't going to be using all the 14 days that it was valid for. In my most recent trip to Portugal for a week, I went with the company Airalo, which is a data-only package. They did not have a local phone number, so it does not include phone calls or text messages. And I went this route because Portugal was the only country that I was visiting. I was traveling with one of my cousins, again, another cousin, so I wasn't going to be solo, so I didn't feel the need to have a local phone number for this trip. Now, Airalo has different data packages and eSIMs, which you can choose either an eSIM locally within that country, or a specific region for a regional eSIM, or a global eSIM. Since I was only going to be visiting Portugal as the only country, I chose a local eSIM card for this trip. The eSIM that I purchased was 5 gigabytes for 30 days, and it was $10. Again, this was data only. So the validity period for this eSIM was significantly longer, for 30 days, and it was 5 gigabytes. This trip was a week long. I could have extended the trip and still had this. And both companies, Orange and Airalo, allow you to top off. So if you're getting low on data, if you found that what you purchased wasn't enough data, you can go onto their app and top off and add more data. So I found both plans to have that option, although I did not need or use that feature. It was nice to know that it was something that I could purchase additional data if need be. The setup for the eSIMs were very similar for both companies. Orange, however, requires you to scan a QR code. So I chose to activate this eSIM before I left for my trip to Germany. So I could purchase it on my computer and scan the QR code on my phone to then activate the eSIM on my phone. This worked really well. I had no issues. You do want to make sure you have a stable internet connection when activating an eSIM. So having my home Wi-Fi I knew was a stable internet connection. It went seamlessly with no issues. The only issue that I encountered with my eSIM through Orange and my trip to Germany was when I went to turn the line on once I had landed. So on my trip to Germany, I initially had a layover in Paris before then connecting to Germany. And I had switched my phone line from my primary line. I turned that off and went to the Orange eSIM line while on the plane, which that went fine. However, if you watched my Germany vlog or the travel lessons video after that, you'll know that a passenger on that flight mistakenly took my carry-on suitcase. This was super stressful because I didn't have the correct phone number and contact information on my luggage tag on my suitcase because I did not get my local French number from Orange until I had turned on that SIM and connected to a local network. Once I had done that, I received a text message from Orange with my French phone number. So if the person who took my suitcase was trying to contact me to give me my suitcase back, they wouldn't have been able to get a hold of me. Luckily, a gate agent of Air France helped me get in contact with the person, so I got my suitcase back, but it was all very stressful. But that situation then made me reevaluate my next international trip to Portugal. Instead of switching SIM cards on the plane, I decided to purchase a day pass with my US carrier's international plan. So it's a $10 a day pass so that I had still my US phone number and data and everything on the day that I traveled, just in case anything came up. I didn't have to worry about what phone plan options I had and how to communicate to someone if something was happening. So on my trip to Portugal, I did not purchase an eSIM until I landed. So when I arrived at Portugal, I was using the day pass for my current cell phone provider's international plan, which was fine, but I found the data to be kind of slow. It still worked. And then once I arrived at my Airbnb, I connected to their Wi-Fi. It was super fast Wi-Fi. So I got onto Airalo's app, purchased an eSIM, and I found that then purchasing and then downloading and activating that eSIM onto my phone while I was in Portugal, super easy, no issues, fast. And then the data that I had from that eSIM, because it was a local eSIM pulling from the local Portugal carriers, I found the data was super fast and I had no issues. So in both experiences, the data packages themselves and the speed, super fast, had no issues. The main concerns that I would have would be I did not utilize my primary line. I turned that off when switching to the eSIM while I was traveling. While I know that my phone and most new phones allow you to have dual SIMs active at once, so at least two SIMs active at once, there's additional costs incurred for phone call, like I said, international phone calls and text messages. And I didn't want to have to try to deal with what settings I needed to have to receive phone calls and text messages, but use the data off my other SIM. And while I tried to do research, and I consider myself somewhat tech savvy, I was trying to figure out if there was a way to use Wi-Fi calling. So use Wi-Fi calling of the number of my primary line and over the data of my secondary eSIM. And I just couldn't figure it out. And all the research that I did, it kind of seems like US carriers have gotten wise to people trying to outsmart their packages. And so they have prevented people, unless there's a way, comment down below if you know a way to do this currently, but I just could not figure it out without being charged additionally, because For US carriers, if you utilize Wi-Fi calling, so for example, you're at your hotel, you connect to their Wi-Fi, you can put your phone on airplane mode, connect to their Wi-Fi, you can use Wi-Fi calling and make calls to other US numbers over the Wi-Fi and not be charged. But if you make a call over the Wi-Fi calling to an international number, that is where you'll be charged. So I was trying to do that same sort of concept with the dual SIMs, using the data from one to do a Wi-Fi calling situation, and I just couldn't figure it out without still being charged an international rate. So that is kind of one of the downsides of the eSIMs, is I felt like I had to shut my primary line off completely so as not to be charged any international cost, whether that's a phone call for international use or data or anything. I just shut it off completely. Now that's different from when I reviewed the mobile hotspot, where I just had to use my primary SIM that my phone came with, that I connected to my domestic US carrier, and just put my phone on airplane mode and connected to my mobile hotspot's Wi-Fi connection. That I could certainly do Wi-Fi calling, and it was super easy. That's where the eSIMs just got a little bit more complicated. Now, even though I couldn't do the Wi-Fi calling over the dual SIMs like I wanted to, I had no problem staying connected to friends and family. I just had to use VoIP apps such as WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, or I have an iPhone, so I was able to iMessage or FaceTime. So I was still able to stay in contact with my friends and family. I just had to use other ways. Now I know viewers from other countries who use WhatsApp as their primary texting application. Here in the United States, we use our phone and phone carriers' text messaging applications. We do use WhatsApp. Don't come for me. I do use WhatsApp. But for my primary way to text my friends and family, I just use SMS text messaging. And that's where then the international text prices just get crazy. So that's kind of a downside. So everyone's packages and plans differ, but staying connected using an eSIM, you can use those apps, like I said, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, iMessage, FaceTime, they all work over the data, so you can still contact your friends and family while you're traveling. So those are just some of my thoughts on using an eSIM. Leave a comment down below if you've ever used an eSIM, what was your experience, or how do you stay connected while you travel abroad? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.